Hello and welcome to Talking About Our Generation. This is episode 5 of our online music chat show, where we climb the stairway to heaven and hopefully reach halfway to paradise. So my name is Gary McVeigh-Kane. I'm joined as always by my partner in pop,
Simon Warner. How are you, Gary?
I'm good, Simon. Yeah, I'm the lockdown tedium's beginning to just sort of draw to a close now, I think, as shops are reopening.
We're still caught up with it. As you say, I've had my first few cappuccinos in the last week, sort of desperate need for a cafe-made coffee. So that has happened.
Had your first haircut as well, by the looks of it.
Absolutely, yes. You've got to go for it eventually, haven't you? But yes, I see you're sticking with the usual look, but that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's cheap and I get to do it at home, so.
Oh, well, I've got you. And of course, both of us are Facebook contributors, aren't we? We tend to keep up with information and share information that way.
Yeah.
And I had a weird, that sort of section where it says people you may know.
Yeah.
And they're sort of encouraging you to link up with people you sometimes know and people you don't. But this week, I had a really famous musician from the 1960s, a bass player called Harvey Brooks, who played with Electric Flag, Stephen Stills, Miles Davis. He was even part of that Bob Dylan revolution around 1965 when Dylan was, turning electric. And it was quite strange to see Harvey Brooks. I mean, he's obviously not trying to link with me, but it's nice to think that someone out there thinks we'd get on. It's quite...
But there's something in that, there's that famous game you can play, the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, where you can take any celebrity within 6. So there's always, within the algorithms of Facebook somewhere, within a couple of links, it's taking you from him to you. So
that is right. There is a very talented American countercultural historian called Pat Thomas, who's written about the Black Panthers and others, and I think he must know Harvey Brooks, so that's why it's happening. But it's quite neat to come across people who have been heroes and suddenly, as you say, the Kevin Bacon thing is happening. Well, we are delighted to welcome today our guests, Michelle Plum and Nick Hall. Together, they form the remarkable duo Plumhall. They have been obviously affected by the recent weeks and months of upset we've all been going through. We'll talk about that in due course. But Nick and Michelle, are you surviving? Tell us how you're feeling.
Well, we're here.
We're here.
hello.
So yes, we've got this far.
Have you managed to make any music during the last 12 weeks or so?
Well, we've actually released an album in that time, so we were concentrating heavily on that. So we've made no new music, but we've released new music. So.
We made a video of one of the songs on the album with some of our friends playing on it. So we did a kind of a Zoom, one of those Zoom shows with lots of musicians playing along. So we've tried to keep going and trying to carry on doing creative things.
It wasn't a Zoom show because Zoom shows don't work.
It wasn't.
Right.
It was a multi-camera thing.
It was a multi-camera thing.
So launching an album at the same time as facing the crisis of COVID, has that been a disappointment, or have you had to be much more inventive about promoting the thing?
We just had to be very inventive. We just had to think outside the box a little bit, and also we've had the wonderful Michelle who's basically learned how to put incredible videos together. So we've had videos with friends of ours from all over the world getting involved in the videos. We've just tried to do some online shows as well, and it's actually been quite interesting. We've actually probably reached some international audiences, which we probably wouldn't have done if we'd been playing around just around festivals and things in Britain. So it's had its challenges, but it's had some interesting aspects as well.
Yeah. And what we've realised as well is there is no cost to doing a gig in your living room.
Right.
So there are advantages. There are advantages. You don't have to haul the PA into a car, haul it out again, set it up, bring it down. We don't have to travel for hours. There are advantages. We're missing the audiences, obviously, but
I'm
yes.
missing the applause.
I don't need the applause. I don't care about that. It's actually really lovely to have a gig and see all the comments coming in live, and be able to respond to them in the moment. rather than waiting until the end of a gig and you don't really know whether somebody's enjoyed it because they've been sitting there stony faced throughout the whole thing, and then they come up to you and say, "Oh, that was great." Oh, really?
And has that been surprising to you? Because I've spoken to a number of musicians who've said that this kind of technology was there right under their noses, and they'd never thought about using it in these interesting ways. Has that been surprising to you too?
Well, we've occasionally dabbled in little things in the past. It's been quite sometimes when Michelle has been away on tour and I've kind of not had a couple of gigs. I've occasionally done one just without. I've not announced it or anything. I've just sort of put the camera on and just played a few songs, and I've actually always quite enjoyed doing it. And you have to find another way of performing and sort of dealing without that little natural gap you have when hopefully people applaud. And what do you do with that little gap and sort of?
Oh, you're so needy.
Yes, I'm very needy. This is the reason. I know a lot of my musician friends are all kind of like missing the applause. It's very odd. But,
so where is the furthest you've found new fans? Can you name one or two nations of the world where you've been reaching that you wouldn't have done otherwise?
Russia.
Yeah.
Russia.
Yep.
Russia, Hungary,
Canada.
Canada. We've had people.
Yeah. We nearly got somebody from Korea, but then that fell through.
But
North Korea or South Korea?
People from Korea
South
have
Korea.
watched
South Korea.
South Korea, sorry, yes.
Yeah, because I heard someone had been in prison for life for watching a gig in North Korea in the West.
Oh, God. Yeah, not that one.
We wouldn't want to do that to anybody.
No.
So in part one of the show, we take a theme that's linked to rock and pop music. And this week, we thought we'd look at the fact that rock and pop history is littered with familial relationships. And given we've got the rarity of a husband and wife combination who actually get on with each other in rock and pop, we thought we'd delve into the murky waters of musical marriages and soulful sibling rivalries. So I thought we could almost kind of play a little game of rock and pop marriage top trumps. But I'm going to go first because I'm in control of it all, and I'm not sure you're going to beat me, but I'm going to start with Fleetwood Mac.
Oh.
and the question I've written on my prep sheet is Fleetwood Mac. Where do you begin? Because of course you had John and Christine McVie. You had, I know they weren't married, but you had Lindsay Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. And I get the feeling somehow that Mick Fleetwood has probably slept with everybody in the band, including himself on numerous occasions. But obviously, you know, in terms of that band and the dynamics, I was thinking the other day, I was listening to Rumours the other day and thinking, how the hell did they ever record that album and then actually get to play it on stage? Because when you think of songs like Go Your Own Way and then you make Loving Fun, and you think, wow, they recorded those on the back of these horrible relationship split-ups, and then they had to stand on stage every night and go through them and play them happily. So, you know, Nick and Michelle, you know, you are a married couple.
Yes.
How does that work for you then in terms of the dynamics of being in a band together?
You go first. You go.
Well, you said earlier that we get on.
Exclusive.
Pick you up on that, really, because we don't always get on. In fact, you know, we've had to over the years find a special way of working together, and it's taken. How long have we been together now? 12 years.
12 years, yeah.
We've been together 12 years and married for 11.
Yeah. Michelle sometimes says she doesn't think the Cray twins got as long as that, really. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, sorry.
No, it's all right. But I think that there's something to be said about writing songs from a point of contention, because I don't really think it's easy to be creative when you're content. It's also not easy to be creative when you're extremely discontent, but there's a little kind of sweet spot, like in the middle of it, where, you know, the creativity flows, and sometimes that can actually become, you know, more apparent with contention.
And there is a bit of a competitiveness as well.
Yeah,
you know,
there is,
we would be lying if we said there wasn't. And so there is a little bit of look at this lyric I've written. Oh, look at this tune I've written for it. And that kind of, I think, pushes us to sort of take things a bit further. I mean, it's not that we're falling out all the time. It is actually great to tour with someone that you know really, really well. That I'm having done lots of tours with people I don't know quite so well, and they haven't been quite as much fun. It is much more fun to tour with Michelle, definitely.
Oh.
I mean, is there any kind of dissonance? I mean, do you have Nick and Michelle who are married and living in the same house, and Nick and Michelle who are in the band, or does it all blend into one?
Good question. It depends. I think on some days, I think we go to a gig and we're super professional, and it kind of depends. We're either having a great time and the laugh continues into the gig, or we're having a terrible time and the terrible time continues into the gig, much to the delight of the audience.
Yeah, I actually think that some people like to see us, to see if I'm going to walk across and kick Nick in the shin or something like that. Or, we're going to have an argument on stage. It's much nicer when we're getting on because it flows better on stage, you know. And Nick is actually a lot better than me at just switching it on, you know, jazz hands and all of that. If I'm in a bad mood, I can't do it, so I just sulk my way through.
It's the actual training, you know. But yeah, I think there is. I mean, sometimes we you know, on a tour we'll go to a National Trust property and we'll look around and then
that sounds so middle class.
I know, it's a little bit, but then we'll bimble along to the gig, and that's, you know, I like that kind of. I like it when days go like that. That's nice, and then we can just be ourselves on and off stage. Yeah.
What sort of points of friction are there in the creative sense? I mean, without getting too serious about this, I mean, what sort of things might cause disagreements when you're recording together or writing together?
Well, we're both sensitive souls and probably oversensitive, and we. Well, I am definitely the bad cop. So if Nick's a much quicker writer than me, he can. I mean, I can go into the kitchen, make a cup of tea, and he's written 3 songs by the time I've come out again. So you know, he can pass me a song and I'll go through it, and instantly I'm in critical mode. I mean, I can like the song, love the song, but I'm going, yeah, it's a good song, but you need to lose this verse here. You need to shorten this. You need to come in with the chorus there. So I'm doing a kind of arrangement thing straight away, and maybe occasionally I need to not vocalize that as soon as he passed me the song.
But actually, it's really, even though it can annoy me, it's also good because there's one song on the album, Cruel Adventures, which has originally had about 12 verses, you know, and between David and Michelle, they pruned it down, and then and there's the song. So I'm not particularly good at editing my own stuff. So it's great to have the critical voice there. But yeah, it just depends on how one sells the criticism, I think. Yes.
But of course, like rock and pop sort of littered with these sort of bad relationships, you know. So we know about the story of ABBA and the interrelationships there, and I was thinking the other day about Sonny and Cher, and in a sense how Sonny Bono discovered Cher, and by the early 70s when they were doing their TV show in America, he was like the butt of all these really deprecating jokes, and it ruined his musical career. But on the other side of the nasty side of relationships in music, of course, there's some really beautiful relationships as well. And I was thinking of, well, it's ups and downs. Clearly, John Lennon and Yoko Ono were madly in love, you know, for much of their lives. You know, have you thought of any other couples that have had those kind of really good relationships the same way you two have?
Ooh, good. There are more bad ones, aren't there?
There are.
I mean, I thought you were going to ask me about bad ones. That's sneaky. I mean,
well, you can tell about bad ones if you can think of any.
I think they got on okay. Captain and Tennille, I think they got on all right. Was it Captain and Toenail? But I think in the folk world, you look to the folk world. I know there are some obvious ones that didn't get on very well, but I think you look to the folk. There are quite a few married couples in folk music who've sort of stuck together, and they might not be as well storied and as famous, but actually they've been creating music together for a long time. I'm just trying to think of one off the top.
You don't think of Richard and Linda Thompson, are you?
I was not. I was not thinking of Richard and Thompson. I was trying to think of some happy one. There must be some.
I mean, the other couple I was thinking of, well, a couple, but Bruce Springsteen and Patti Scialfi. They've had a very long and fruitful marriage, and they work together all the time. And clearly, it's worked out for them. And I think the most touching for me, in a lot of ways, was June and Johnny Cash.
Yes,
of course.
Yeah.
And I think when because that Walk the Line, the brilliant biopic about how they got together and how he chased her for so many years. But most touching, of course, is that video for Hurt that was filmed about 4 months before June passed away. And that beautiful scene where he's sat in his chair and she's just got a hand on his shoulder, and you see love and tenderness. So, I mean, are you aiming to get to that kind of grand old age and still be able to stand there and put your hand tenderly on his shoulder, Michelle?
I don't like to look too far into the future.
So our guests on this episode are the wonderful Plumhall from Bradford. They've just released their second studio album, The Ghost of Noise, having built up a wonderful live reputation over the last few years. A brilliantly warm couple who write incredibly deep and moving songs, many of which are very emotional and catchy and can be sung along to. Always a brilliant live act. So welcome again, Plumhall.
Oh, thank you very much. And what lovely words. Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome. So your new album, Ghost of Noise, it's taken some time in the making. So can you tell us about the genesis of that album, where the songs came from, and why you've put so much meticulous effort into recording it just exactly how you want it?
It took a long time, and we were very sort of along with David, our producer, we were very meticulous in the making of it. And we wanted it to be a step forward. I've always liked bands who you get into their first album and the second album isn't just a retread of the previous one. So we wanted it to move forward somehow. So it's moved forward sonically. And also we wanted to move forward in the songwriting stage. We've already mentioned a lot more collaboration in the songwriting, and we wanted to do that to excite ourselves. And it all started, like the previous album, Thundercloud, all kind of hinged on that one song, Thundercloud, the title track, and everything sort of fitted around it sonically and sort of thematically. And I think with this record, The Ghost of Noise, the title track, was the first thing that we recorded and for it. And we realised that's the sound. Those are kind of the themes. And the themes broadly about communication between conflict of communication, really. And it even tied in with the artwork, because the artwork of the album kind of linked it all together as well, because the artwork's it features a Napoleonic war era tower that sits on a headland in Ireland, beautiful place, right next to a signal station, a Marconi signal station. And so the idea of conflict and communication and warlikeness, and even between sort of couples or between families or between nations, was kind of the theme roughly of the album. Not everything fits that theme, but that's where we sort of started off from.
And it also seems as if on this new album you have left behind some of your Americana themes and have gone for these incredible collages of sound, electronics sounds, found sounds. And is there ever a danger, do you think, of alienating your audience, or do you feel as if your audience are ready to move forward with you?
We don't have an audience. There's nobody to alienate.
That's not true.
No. No, the thing is, I particularly, and I think both of us, we don't want to sit still, and we don't want to be compartmentalized into. We never wanted to be, part of one specific genre. I love that we've been embraced by the folk world and the Americana world to a point, but I never wanted to get stuck there. And I mean, Nick has had much more of a folk background than I have. I mean, I had never even really been to a folk club before I was 21, 22, and it wasn't even really a folk club. It was just more, you know, people coming in and doing, I don't know, Queen songs, you know, in an a cappella style or something like that, you know.
Where is the bar, Michelle?
Sorry?
Where is this bar?
Oh, it was in York. It was when I was a student. Yeah, it was brilliant. So I kind of wanted to move away from that anyway. And also, obviously, our producer, David, he hails from a pop background and a synth pop background. So we just, and we've always loved synths. You know, we listen to quite a lot of synth music actually, and when they come on we go, oh god, what an amazing Moog sound, we really ought to incorporate that, you know. So, and we don't think that there should be any rules, so that was
and also think at the core of all the songs that there are two acoustic instruments being played by two people singing in harmony with two acoustic instruments, so the arrangements are very different, but if you see as at the core of the song, there's still that sort of heartbeat which is very much acoustic and very could work in most of the songs could work in a folk club, you know. So I think even so, we hope
it's not a synth frenzy.
We have. It's not trance or anything like that. You know, it's not my Neil Young. But I think the audience will either come along, whatever the audience is, will either come along with us or they won't, you know, and that's fair enough. But we're still seeking to sort of change as we go along. But I think at the core of it is this kind of acoustic songwriting.
The next album is going to be opera.
I was going to say, leading on, we've talked about live performance there. I mean, you're extremely popular live performers, and there's a real warmth and energy that comes through when you're on stage. Where did your stagecraft come from? And does it come naturally to you both, or is it something you've really worked hard to develop?
I for one have never worked at anything, you know, in terms of stagecraft. I just go. I mean, as we said earlier, I mean, I can't always switch on the jazz hands, but Nick is very, very good at it, and Nick tends to have a few stock elements that he can bring to the set each time, which it creates a consistency, whereas I'm extremely kind of haphazard and inconsistent, and I don't really know what I'm going to say or do. You know, at each gig, it just comes. I
mean, I must admit, I have done that thing when I was a kid of the bands I was into, the bands I loved. So, but all the bands I really liked were absolutely brilliant live in different ways. And he also, even on the, so I was either going to indie clubs and seeing rock bands, or I was going to bigger venues and seeing rock bands, or I was going to folk clubs. But I've picked stuff up along the way. Even it might be a joke, it might be a way of dealing with a heckler, it might be a way of getting the audience talking to you, and that creates the warmth in the room. And it might even just to the way of you hold the guitar when you're doing a guitar solo. You know, I'll have nicked something off a member of the Mission or something, or a member of the Icicle Works, so I've nicked a style of playing. So I think it's an amalgamation of all sorts of different things, but I'm massively into Max Shaw. If I go and see a band, I want to be sort of on the edge of my seat. Even in the quiet bits, I kind of want to be like on the edge of my seat, because there's something that they're drawing me in. So they don't have to be jumping around all the time, but that's that sort of sense of, and that's what I try and do. And Michelle kind of just does it naturally, but I'm sort of trying to do it. Yeah.
Just perhaps to end this section with a slightly more serious question. You are live working musicians, recording musicians. The 21st century has not been an easy time for musicians to operate in. It's been made all the worse by the last 4 months of close down. Are you hopeful for the future of the industry? Are you hopeful for your own careers? Just tell us a few thoughts you've been having about this, maybe.
I mean, I'm a cup half full type of person, and I think it will come good. Eventually we will be able to play again, and we'll be able to gig again, because there's a huge demand for it. I think even greater demand than there ever was. But of course, what the worry is that how many venues will still be left, and how many lives will be terribly interrupted. And we've already seen these redundancies in the big theatres, and I'm very worried about it. But I've got to keep hopeful and think that we will get back to playing again, and hopefully we'll be able to get the industry up and running again.
Hope's all we've got at the moment, really. There are so many, and so many people have been forgotten in this, as well as musicians. There are all the people behind the scenes, the lighting people, the sound people, people putting up rigs. You know, we're all in the same boat, basically.
And you think of all the hospitality. If you get to a theatre in London, or hospitality type places around that, so restaurants, pubs, bars, taxi drivers.
They're opening again.
They're opening, but if you a one concert actually it feeds so many different people. If you talk about a big concert somewhere, and there's a huge knock-on effect. So yeah, it is very, very worrying. But we just have to hope that. I mean, we try and think all the time about how could we do this, what could we do, and it's interesting that it seems to be coming. The idea of playing in the open air now seems to be something that's a sort of tentative step forward.
If only we had the right weather.
Yeah, that would help.
It sounds as if you two, who are remarkably positive people, hard-working people, you feel as if there is some optimism to seize, and we've all got to hope that is going to fulfil its hopes, don't we? Yeah, absolutely.
I hope so.
I have good days and bad days.
yeah.
So in the third and final part of the show, we ask our guests, who today are the wonderful Plumhall, to bring along a piece of music that they'd like to talk about. And it follows on with something we talked about earlier in the show. You've chosen to talk about Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush. So do you want to... So do you want to tell us why you picked that song in particular?
Well, I think when we first got together, we found lots of bands and songs in common that we both loved, and that was actually part of us getting to know each other, which is really nice. And I think 1985 is sort of an annus mirabilis pop music-wise for me, certainly. There's loads and loads of tracks that year which I absolutely love, and Running Up That Hill was kind of my introduction really to Kate Bush. Obviously, I remember Wuthering Heights as a small person, but seeing her as this kind of very sleek, sort of very interesting pop artist, and that song was just utterly beautiful, and the sounds were so odd and ear-catching, and it's one of my favourite Kate Bush songs. I'm not sure it's your favourite, but it's one that we have in common, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I have different favourites on different days, but yeah, it was one of the ones I remember hearing in the 80s, and I'm a real. I have to apologise for being an 80s music fan. We just love it. We watch Top of the Pops for all the 80s reruns and everything. We're up in the middle of the sitting room dancing away, But Running Up That Hill. It's the driving drums that actually were a real inspiration for the drums on South to Glory on our record. Because what I love about the drum work on Kate Bush's tracks is that she doesn't tend to be a big fan of cymbals, and I'm not a big fan of overt cymbal use, but it's that I just absolutely love all of that. And she's got a load of tracks that I absolutely love because of that. Sat in Your Lap and Cloud Busting and Big Sky, that kind of thing, and they all tend to have that kind of very tribal sounding drum rhythm going on.
Not many splashy cymbals.
Yeah, and the subject matter of Running Up That Hill, it sort of appeals to us, even though we don't write relationship songs. It's one of the few that Kate Bush has sort of delved into in terms of what it would be like to swap places, for a woman to swap place with them.
Yeah. So it's a relationship song, but an incredibly weird relationship song, which is great. She's never been a confessional sort of songwriter, so when she does delve into relationships, she does it from a really interesting
oblique.
And until MTV came along, or the very start of the 80s, you didn't need to visualize your songs.
No.
You know, Kate Bush clearly goes to a lot of trouble to bring that song to life in a visual sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you were saying a bit earlier on, Michelle, that she's someone who's interested in movement and dance and the lyrics and the whole theatrical experience. I wonder how much control she had over the video. Do you think she also directed that?
Yeah, I think she has ultimate control over everything. I mean, she studied dance because, as she said, music and dance are kind of inextricably linked. You know, I mean, you can't have one you can have one without the other, actually. But
folk clubs. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I think she had ultimate control over everything, really. I mean, if she was able to have control over the music industry at a time when women were not able to do that, then I can't imagine that dance would have been any different.
Funnily enough, the MTV thought that the video for Running Up That Hill was so weird that they actually just showed her performing it on Wogan. As a performance, apparently. I was reading up about it today. Apparently, they just kind of MTV just thought it was just too arty.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently so.
God.
So luckily, she'd done. There was a film performance of her doing it on Wogan. That's what MTV used.
And Tony, finally, we always finish talking about one of our guest songs, and I just wanted to finally finish by talking about a song from the new album, "A Darkness That Won't Leave the House." So in a moment, we're going to see a little clip from the video, and maybe you can tell us how the idea of this video came about.
I think we needed something. We needed to keep the sort of momentum of the album going. I thought we need to have a video that is really universal and that has a theme. What's the theme of the song? And the theme of the song is very much looking after your mental health and looking after others' mental health. And I think we just had this idea, wouldn't it be great to have friends of ours, first and foremost, just lighting a candle very simply and just sending it in. And then that kind of got extrapolated, and we thought, well, we'll put it out generally to see who will send it. And then we thought about some people who we could ask to get involved. And it just, we got loads and loads of videos, and they were all just beautiful. And then, and so at that point, my input ceased, and it was over to Michelle to put it together. And I think he just did the most amazing job. And it's very, very, very moving. A lot of people who've seen it have said it's very, very. It enhances the meaning of the song. I think that the video itself, even though we had very little to do with it in terms of we're in it for like 2 seconds, and that's we would have been happy not to be in it at all. But the idea to show that there's someone singing the songs, we're in it just for a tiny second. But to just try and get as many people from all around the world just to sort of light a little candle of hope, I think, you know, at this time is hopefully a lovely thing for people to see. Hopefully,
it felt like a community coming together.
Yes, I mean it's an extraordinarily touching video, and the song complements it extremely well. It almost seemed prescient. I mean, clearly you wrote this song long before the last 4 or 5 months of torture, but it seems to have echoes, doesn't it, of our current experience?
It does. It's strangely enough, the last song on the album, Closing Down, when the D'Urberville Spoken Root Show wanted to play one of the songs from the album, they chose that one just as the lockdown was happening, and I'm closing down, the sign is on the door, everything's closing. And it was very odd that it just totally chimed in. So we've almost 2 songs on there which just happened to chime in with the times, you know. So sadly, you know,
Yes, I mean, I've just thought, listening to it, this is a song for now, but it must have had a life. I mean, it must have been born 2 or 3 years ago, must it? I don't know quite.
Yes, yeah. It was slightly more personal at the time. It was about worrying about someone that we knew, and everyone was panicking about this person and what they were going through, and we were sort of saying, no, they'll be okay. They've got a big network around them. They've got someone to catch them if they fall. We're here, and the song is almost it's one person talking to another person saying, we're here for you, we've been through it, we know what it's like, we're here, you know. And so again, that now has got with the video, it's got a more universal theme to it now.
Yeah, it's just a message to people that they shouldn't be going through any mental health issues alone, really, and they should try and reach out where they can.
Yeah, so we put as many links as we could in the video and in the description, just for various different people for different ages and from around the world. Actually, there's a couple of international links, places to get in touch with. And so yeah, that was the idea behind the video, and I think it did shine.
A fantastic boost for world candle sales, I thought.
Yeah, you always.
We nearly burned the house down trying to do that.
So butcher, baker, yeah, we need sort of bread song next. I think
song about meat.
Great. It's a great combination of visuals and message and atmospheric in the extreme. Wonderful.
Well, Nick and Michelle, it is a beautiful, positive song. It's a really positive way to end today's show. You're wonderful live performers, and I hope you get out there, because whilst it's wonderful to see you via Facebook Live and things like that, I think anybody who gets to see you live on stage and see that chemistry and hear your wonderful voices in the flesh, it's a great experience.
Thank you.
Best of luck with going forward with the Ghost of Noise. It's available on all streaming outlets and to buy via digital means, and I'm sure you've got physical versions that people can buy from your website as well.
So just get proper music.
Propermusic.com.
Yeah.
Go out and buy it, because it is really worth owning. Nick and Michelle, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, guys, and best of luck. Stay safe.
Thank you.
See you both soon, I hope.
See you both soon. See ya.
Bye.
It's a way in this family, we keep it all quiet, batten down hatches when the storm's coming in. Never throw lifelines into flares or a stop sign. Don't share our troubles, keep our worries within. But that's gotta change, I can see that you're hurting. If you ever need it, here's the key to our door. You weren't the first and you won't be the last. It's deep in our bloodline, we've been here before. It's the darkness that won't leave the house, but there's a small flame that cannot go out. There are arms into which you can't fall. We've seen it all. We've seen it all. All those high expectations were building up something that slithered and coiled up in you deep down inside. But the face in the mask watching your every task. Is your face in the mirror? Is it enough that you tried? It's the darkness that won't leave the house, but there's a small flame that cannot go out. There are arms into which you can't fall. We've seen it all. We've seen it all. It's the darkness that won't leave the house, but there's a small flame that cannot